what I realized from a deeper perspective is just like, this is life. Like, these pains, these struggles, this is all part of it. It's all going to happen to all of us. It's all going to be a part of it.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. I am your host. My name is Ross Theisen. I'm a filmmaker, creative director, a writer, a thinker, and doer of many things. But of course, most importantly for this, I'm a podcaster as I bring you these open journal dives into people's lives every other Monday, where I sit down with my guest and listen to their life story, covering all the ups, all the downs, and all the thoughts and feelings in between. Now, really quick, before we dive into this week's episode, if you're new around here, or even if you're a returning listener, either way, I want to remind you to subscribe on iTunes, follow on Spotify, follow us on social media at WYDHpod. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Listen, I'm trying to get better at actually using the Twitter, so toss a follow there, give me a reason to, or just honestly tell me that you don't care about Twitter at all, and I shouldn't even have a profile on there, and then confirm with me that I don't need to worry about it, honestly. One less social media to focus on is always a good thing. But either way, mainly what I ask is that if you do like what you hear today, tell someone, tell the internet by sharing it and tagging it. Tag us, tag the show, tag me, or go and tell me directly by leaving a review over on iTunes. It truly helps more than you may think it does. So take a couple moments out of your day, go write about what you liked about the show, toss some stars on there, preferably 5. It truly does help the show matter a little bit more in those almighty internet algorithms that we all have to play around. So realistically, the next time someone asks you for a podcast recommendation, what I really am asking is to tell them about the bright yellow one. That's really what I'm looking for. But let's dive into this week's episode. This week, I sit down with my friend Drew, and honestly, we're just going to keep his name as just Drew for this so I don't mess up the pronunciation of his last name. As you'll hear in this episode, I learned how to say it properly, but I'm not really going to give it a shot here, as I'm sure I'm still going to mess it up. So either way, here it is, episode 43 of What You Don't Hear, and my conversation with my friend Drew. One day I'm going to have one of those like cool like hip pitcher things. I just need to get one. Yeah. They're like $2 at IKEA. Then I'll have one sitting here to look way cooler on camera, and you can actually refill your water while we're doing this. All right, man, let's make this happen.
Yeah,
Drew,
let's do it.
Welcome to the show, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I am very, very stoked that you were down to do this, because I don't even remember the last time we saw each other.
It's been a while. Definitely way pre-pandemic. Like, I remember we were at Tim Hortons and we talked for like 11 hours.
Dude, yes. Like, so that was something that like literally popped up in my head when I was like, I want to get Drew on the show. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wonder if he'd be down. Like, literally, I think the couple first seconds I thought about it, I was like, I wonder if he'd be down to like talk to me on the podcast. And I was like, we sat in a Tim Hortons for like 6 hours. Yeah, like and that's so funny, because like that's, I feel like my not test. It's not like I'm like doing it to test somebody, but that's always my like confirmation that like, okay, cool, somebody like really likes chatting with me. Like we sit somewhere for hours upon hours and talk, which we did that first time, which is wild to me. Like,
and I think we've seen each other at a couple Ohio HD events and like stuff like that, and just immediately always hit it off and like, what's up, Ross? Like,
exactly.
So like definitely, man, like I'm definitely excited to do a podcast.
Yeah, dude, and this is the perfect place for those multi-hour conversations. Yeah. So we give it a little bit more purpose rather than just sitting in a Tim Hortons and probably having the workers be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, Tim Hortons is not that good. Like, you've been here for 4 hours. Get out of here. Well, dude, I joked about this before we started recording, but you always got to save it for the pod, brother. Yeah. What have you been up to, dude? How have you been since, because again, just like you said, we haven't seen each other since like pre-pandemic. Yeah. So that's like an entire year, probably even more. I would dare say maybe the last Ohio HD event.
Yeah.
Because I think when we got Tim Hortons was even before that.
It was before that, yeah.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, man?
Man, just continuing on this path of a filmmaker, creative, cinematographer. Like, life has been, I guess, crazy for all of us, but it's a lot of changes, especially this year. Like, this year's turning into the year I thought 2020 was going to be.
Okay.
And I'm not freelance anymore.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got hired full time at Ohio HD.
Wait, really?
Yes, just last week.
Oh,
No,
so it's
week
like
before.
new.
Yeah,
Okay.
new. Like that's new. Like, so I'm still trying to figure out that transition. I still have stuff on the
That's
books.
so sick.
Yeah, like after 5-6 years of freelance, like Scott, I was actually planning to move to LA at the end of this month.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so like one thing that I try to do that I hadn't done in a long time was introduce serious change in my life on purpose. Like just step off a cliff somehow.
Okay.
And like see, because a lot of times I've always found one, something good happens from that, and two, that it's not a mountain or a cliff. It's literally stepping off the ledge after you turn around and look. And I used to do it a lot when I was younger. It's not like I'm old. I'm 30 now, so it's not like. But like I used to do it all the time, and then I found over the past couple of years, I slowly reverted into my parents, like where it's like, no, let's just go safe. This is the safe route. This is a safe gig. Like my dreams turned from making this creative piece into how much stability I can build at one time, and it stopped being about changing things up. So I was gonna move to either Chicago or LA just kind of because I was feeling like I was in a rut. I feel like I was stagnant. And like the scary thing about that was I didn't have a community there. I have friends there. I had a job opportunity in LA, and I was there for 2 weeks. I did a gig and meeting up with friends and stuff like that. And I came back and Scott was just like, hey man, let's catch up. Like, cause I'm always in and out. They've been hiring me as a freelancer for like the past a year and a half, 2 years or so.
Right.
So it's like, it's just Scott. Like Scott is cool. Like Scott is just like, yeah, you around, blah, 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 blah. I have this gig for you if you want to like come by. And so I just walk in normal. I didn't know it was an interview. And he just was like, hit me like, hey, have you ever thought of leaving freelancing? So that's like brand new.
That is
life.
wild. Dude, well, congrats, because
Yeah.
that's so sick. Like, and
So-
I think by the time this releases, you'll probably have been working there for at least a handful of weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like it was also the change that I think I needed as well. Like being a part of freelance, you're just a mercenary, you're running gun, you're this and that. And you kind of have a community because you kind of work with a lot of the same people over and over, but you never feel at home anywhere.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times you don't realize the things you're missing until you get them. And so like now having a kind of solid community that you feel there, that's people that are like-minded, that you can laugh with, that you're growing with, that are just as smart as you, if not smarter than you, that like immediately I don't even have to go to Google. I can just ask David or Casey or one of those dudes,
Yeah.
and Ryan, and they'll be like, yeah, I've done that 1,000 times.
All the
like,
freaking geniuses at Ohio HD.
all the geniuses
Yeah.
there. So it's like it's a perfect community to grow me and push me to the next level. And and I knew I was entering a safe space. I hate that terminology because
Yeah.
it conjures up.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But like I knew I was entering a space where I could trust people with my back. Mm-hmm. So like that is what kind of made it a perfect fit for me. So it's been great there, but that's like the brand new. So right now, like my lease ends at the end of the month, which is a couple weeks, and my plan was like, okay, I'm going to LA. I went there. I was looking at apartments, blah 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 blah. I wasn't prepared to stay in Ohio.
Yeah, I mean those are some big adjustments to make of like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm getting mentally prepared to move out of state, go somewhere else, find some new jobs, new home, whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, hang out in Ohio somewhere.
Yeah, which I don't mind. Like I love Columbus. Like Columbus
Yeah.
is a dope space. Like cost of living is fucking 10 times better. Like so it's like it'll like I'm I don't mind here, but like making that transition added a level of change in my life that I needed. Like, and though I'm rushing to half still find a place to live, which it'll all get figured out. Fuck it. But like it was a purposeful change that I kind of needed. And I think at where I'm at now in life is like, cause before I would do shit like I remember in college I bought a house and rented it out to roommates and shit.
Really?
And managed it, yeah. and lived in the basement.
In college?
Yeah, in college.
Bought a house?
It was a piece of shit. Like, don't.
Right.
Like, it was a piece of shit. I bought it, fixed it up. It was somehow a crack house a block away from the police station. Like, it was bullshit. But like, it was safe, but not safe.
Yeah.
It was a very weird dynamic. But like, I consistently do stuff like that just to see what it was like. Like, okay, I want to know. I'm in college. I need to help pay for it. Like, my parents don't have a bunch of money. We all need places to live. Like, and I'm interested in ownership, real estate, how this is going to develop me. And so fuck it. Let's do it. That was literally the amount of thought. I mean, I put together the basic amount of like, how am I actually going to make this happen without putting too much at risk? But that experience itself grew me so much. Like, the roommates and the people that would come in, and the friends who originally lived there, who I thought had my back, or who I thought would be, this guy's definitely reliable. And it's like, fuck no, he's not.
Right.
Like, a couple, and it's like all the life lessons you learn from that. And so, like, bouncing around doing that, like, it helps develop your perspective and mature you. And just like as a creative, like, I think we have to make sure to continue to live our life and experience life. Like, just because your heart's beating don't mean you're alive. So you got to make a concerted effort to change and to develop. Now, I'm not saying like you go home and be like, baby, I'm leaving. Like, I don't want to be married no more. Drew said, I'm not saying that. Like, but like, introducing certain types of flux to your life is important, especially that you personally decide to introduce, because life is going to introduce it no matter what. Like, that's just a part of it. But I think it adds so much perspective to you as an artist or a person. Like, how I think there's a machine that we can fall into, especially as artists, as creators, and you think you're saying something, or you think you have a perspective, but you're really just reiterating the same bullshit you've kind of always reiterated.
Right. A
lot of times a strong gust of wind can help you morph that dynamic a little bit. So it's like, after a couple years, 3-4 years of feeling like just stagnant, like, this year has kind of blown that up and been like, okay, Drew, like, shit. Because even talking to Scott in our meeting, he was like, yeah, dude, like, if you're not interested in taking like a staff position, don't worry about it. Like, we can continue, because he said he's dealt with that in his past before, like, where people get like, well, if you don't want to work for me, well, fuck you. Like,
right.
He was just like, don't worry about it. Like, we can continue our freelance relationship exactly how it is. Like, don't even worry. Like, that's not I don't want you to worry that if you say no to me right now, that it's going to be a problem. So he's like, but in my head, I'm like, no, this is actually fucking perfect. Like, it's development-wise, I think it's what I need. Like, because I'm not necessarily where I want to be as a creative anyway. And I know HD has the tools and the people to help push me there. And it's a large change, but it's also calculated change. Like, I'm not that 21-year-old anymore who is more willing to just jump off the cliff. Like, at 30, good or bad, I'm still like, the lumps from all the jumping off the cliffs kind of, it teaches you. So like, you understand that, yeah, it's cool to jump off a cliff, but it does fucking hurt. So like, it was a perfect thing that came in the right time for me to be like, okay, because to be honest, LA is always going to be there. Like,
right.
These places are always going to be there. And really, like, it's not like, it's about your comfort in the space you're in, not the exteriors or whatever. So it's like, it was just a perfect spot. So yeah, this is actually, I think, my first staff position as a creative, like, before I've been freelance my entire career, basically.
That is so dope. And what a couldn't be at a cooler place either.
Yeah.
So like that is, I feel like, the perfect fit.
Perfect spot.
Knowing you the way that I do and knowing them, like that just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
What like was there any part of you that like I know we were talking about being like prepared to like move out of state or go to LA or wherever it is, like was that sort of one of those just kind of like, I'm just going to jump off the cliff and like see what happens? And then like when you got that trade-off of like, hey, here's maybe more of like a calculated risk that comes with a high HD of like, you've got that safety net. And it's I don't even know if I'd call that a risk, but like, here's just a different path that can maybe take you. And I mean, what was even the decision like in that? Because I mean, I feel like you're gearing up to go to LA or, you know, wherever else. And then at the right time, like something else pops up that you're like, oh, wait, okay. Like I can shift my focus a little bit.
It was like, because the LA thing wasn't, it was more of a change of pace type of deal than it was a yearning desire to, I'm past the point where I'm like, if I go here, I'm going to blow up. And next time you see me, I'm going to be like, I'm past that. So for me, it was more of a, and don't get me wrong, like I definitely still want to take that shift year down the road, but it's like I think more because it felt right. Like if my gut told me nah, like not these guys, then I would have been like, no, I have plans, like blah 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 blah.
Of course, yeah.
But I know the guys there, I love the guys there, like they're a great group. So that was the big break. That was the big point. For me, it wasn't about it wasn't necessarily about the. It wasn't about the like, oh, they got the gear, they got this, they got that. It wasn't that. It was like, okay, these people here, I know I can trust and I know I can grow with. Like going out to LA, that was actually my main fear about LA. It wasn't the finances, it wasn't the work, it wasn't the money, it wasn't any of that. It was finding a community and starting over in that way, which was part of why I wanted to go, because it was a weird dichotomy. Like part of me was like, go because it's brand new and you need this change. But the other thing was like, don't go because you spent years building here. You spent people, you have people you care about, love to create with. And those things were pushing and fighting against each other. And if it was a group of people who I felt didn't have that interest, I'd be in LA right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
But because of who those guys are, it's like, no, like what's the rush? Like,
right.
And I guess I can say that because I'm not like married with kids and shit like that.
Of course.
So it's like,
yeah. It's you. You've got to take care of you. Yes. And I'm sure like I would assume from everything that how you've explained your viewpoints on accepting challenges and making changes in your life, I would assume that if in 6 months from now you're like, you know what, this Ohio HD thing was dope, I've gotten a little bit complacent, I need something that's outside of the challenges they're bringing me, maybe in 6 months you're moving to LA.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like you welcome those like active changes again because it's just you. Like you've just got same thing with me. Like I feel like I can make those types of decisions too, where if like because I have literally heavily debated moving somewhere else for even like 6 months.
Yeah, just for a little while. Like, and that's the thing. It's one of those things where you don't have to go forever. Like, I think people put this pressure on themselves that, well, if I go to LA or New York or this and that, then I have to become successful. Because if I come, it's like, stop. Like, no, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
Like, if you need a new experience for a certain period of time, like, of course, you need to look at your motivations behind that, because I think that's definitely important. But like, because you don't leave to run from something. That's my thing. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. Am I leaving to try to go to LA to run from something, or am I just stagnant and I feel I need to change? Because if you're running from some shit, you can't run from yourself. Whatever you're going through is within you. So don't think you're about to go to LA and then everything's going to change and all the drama and toxicity. You're just going to bring that wherever you go. So I will say that, but you're exactly right. Like within 6 months to a year, and me and Scott even talked about that, like within 6 months to a year, like develop, grow, see how it works for both of us. And then if it don't work, just go. And if you want to come back, you go to LA, you find out, this isn't my speed. Come back. Like, it's right. Don't worry about, oh, yo, he went to LA. He thought he was going to be big time. Don't worry about people. Don't worry about all that. Just because this world is such an expansive place and there's so many expansive experiences you can have, like, and all of that will aid in your development and who you are. So it's like, don't get caught up on any one space, any one gig, any one project. You're going to, hopefully if you live long, you're going to have a million of those. So find the spaces you feel you need to be at the time. And like, my brother actually passed away during the pandemic. So, but the way he lived kind of taught me that, where my brother traveled the world. Like, he spent time from Asia to Europe. Like, he traversed and he lived in his 30 years. He lived insane. Like, he packed it in. So it's like, it's one of those things where if you go, I remember he lived in Singapore for like a year and was working out there. And then he came and then he lived in Ireland for a while. And then he came and then he lived in Japan on and off for years. And like, it's one of those things where don't feel if you go, like, we don't live in a world of covered wagons anymore. Like, people back in that day, like, they were scared of snake bites and shit. Like, that's why they didn't travel all the time. Like, you don't have to worry about that shit. Go, even if it's not LA, like, even if it's the other side of your state. And I remember a professor told me this. He was like, if you, later in life, down the road, he was like, take time to get away, even if it's in your own spaces. Rent a small space. Airbnb exists now. Get a log cabin, get a whiteboard, go there and just write, whether it be the pinpoints of your life, whether it be your creative aspirations, whether it be the things you hate, the things you think are eating away at you, whatever secret or darkness you're trying to run from or that you're trying to have a conversation with, have that conversation there. And it doesn't have to be at home in the space that you feel once you leave, once those demons are there, then angels are there, because it doesn't always have to be bad, where like if it's there, you feel, if you do it over there, you don't have to keep it with you if you do it in your place. So it's like, it doesn't have to be LA, or that change doesn't have to be dramatic, but sometimes that shifting into something that you never, like I found out my dad used to build furniture. Like, that's not something that sometimes you forget there are whole segments of people's lives that you don't know anything about. And it's like, create that for yourself sometimes. Like, it doesn't have to be something, and you'll find whatever that is might aid to you. It doesn't have to be it can be something as simple as that. It can be something as simple as you picking up a skateboard and be like, I'm going to spend some free time just cruising around. It might, in your own head, it might feel weird to you imagine yourself on a skateboard, or imagine yourself doing this, or imagine yourself, why the fuck would I build furniture? Like, you'll think that, but sometimes you have to get out of your own way and just experience something. And you'll be surprised at all the thoughts that will pop into your head because of that.
Yep. Dude, I feel like we are having this conversation at like the perfect time, because I feel like I'm having awakening is a strong word, but I'll use that word. I feel like I'm having an awakening to a lot of what you're saying, where like, I feel like for so many years, I have been solely focused on like career growth and work and freelancing and self-employment, and I need to build my business, I need to do this and blah, blah, blah. And it's very easy to get caught up in that stuff and just get in, it's like you almost create your own mundane cycle that you were trying to avoid by not doing a 9-to-5, like normal whatever.
You build your own machine.
Yes. You end up building your own machine and still get caught up in it. And I literally feel like, and to be fair, I feel like pandemic opened me up to a lot of this, much like I've seen it open up a lot of other people. When you get all those things that you would normally do stripped away, you're only left with what? yourself. So then you have to identify, wait, am I actually happy with me? Am I actually happy with the job that I am trying to figure out how to do from home now? Or is there something else? And I've seen so many people pick up new hobbies and all this sort of stuff throughout the last year, given that their normal life was sort of taken away for a bit. Will those stick? Who knows? They were probably just trying to fill some time while they were bored inside. Like, who knows? But I know for me, it sort of put a little bit of stuff in perspective where I'm like, you know, I do luckily get to make my own schedule every day, and I get to work from home if I want. Normally, like, that wasn't a big change for me when we all had to work from home or not go do things. But I think of what it like started to spark in my mind, and it wasn't immediate, because I think just in the last couple months, like you're saying, this year, you know, you felt like this is what 2020 was going to be, and then 2020 was a different form of something, and now 2021 is bringing up these new things where you're like, oh wait, here's some new paths. I feel like it's doing the same thing for me.
Definitely.
Where the spark was kind of ignited in 2020 of making me kind of step back and reevaluate a lot of stuff. I almost stopped doing video in 2020, by the way. I know we haven't talked since then. But like, that was one of the things where I was like, wait a second, like the way that I'm getting fulfilled in this video world is actually not what I want at all. So major changes need to happen. Luckily, those changes were made and now we're all good. But now I feel like I'm trying to, and I feel like this is so important of what you said earlier, of accepting and welcoming new challenges, to make even subtle changes in your life. I'm in the midst of that right now, where I'm like, I just want to try different things. I don't want everything, like, even though I know this is how my brain works and I'll have to retrain it a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy how I think of things, but I want to just like calm it down a little bit to where anything that pops up in my mind, I'm always like, how can I be perfect at it? How can I start a business out of it? How can this grow into my next career path? Where I'm like, let's calm that down. Like, it's okay to collect those skills that can all lead towards an eventual career path or a more evened out you. But can't you just do things for the challenge of it, or just do things for the fun of it?
And we're kind of trained in a space to be like that. Like, to me, it's like, don't worry about it lasting forever. None of this, all this shit don't last forever. Like, don't even worry about it. Just take in the experience for what it is at the time. Like earlier, if you start furniture making, I'm not saying go make a furniture making business and then you can.
That's where I'd get stuck. That's where my mind would go.
Like, I'm the same way. Like, I immediately want to do it perfect and I want to be blah, blah, blah. And then you start hating on, knocking yourself over the head. Like, it's not right, blah, blah, blah. It's like, sometimes the experience in and of itself is what you need and what you should be going for. Like, it doesn't need to last forever. You don't need to do it for the next 10 years. You don't need to just do it. And I'm not saying be fickle, because there's such a context, like there's a line to it. Because it's like, I'm not saying pick up something, every little thing you feel like. I'm not saying that, but but don't put the pressure on yourself, like, to last forever. I have to do this for a certain amount of time. Gain that experience. Let it change your brain chemistry a little. And then if it keeps calling you, keep going. And if it organically feels like that you want to turn it into a business, or that you want to do this or that, then go about that if you feel it. But I think we've lost hobbies. We've lost hobbies. Like, they don't really exist anymore. Everything is a side hustle. And it's like, sometimes you can have a hobby just to have a hobby. You can play video games without starting to Twitch. You can just fucking enjoy life sometimes.
You are talking to my soul right now. like, this is what I need to hear. Yes.
Like, I started a TikTok channel just because I thought I was supposed to. Like, there's nothing. I don't even open it. Like, it's just on my phone just in case I get one of those social media anxiety attacks of how I'm not keeping up with I'm not informing the world about whatever. And you get this, like, sometimes you got to step back from that. Like, sorry. It's like,
it's great.
It's fine to just live your peace. Like, you hear, and part of it is the Instagramization or whatever. I know that's not a word of life, but it's like, I remember talking to Scott and he was talking to me about my demo reel, and he was saying like, oh, do you have this type of work or this type of work you can put in it? Like your demo reel isn't bad, but like the spaces that I think you can get work in, I think you need to evolve or change your demo reel up some. And I was like, yeah, I have a bunch of that. And he's like, yeah, why didn't you put it? And then that's when it hit me. My demo, and it's not conscious, like I'm drawn to the things that I believe social media or marketing or this or that are going to evolve, what I put out is based on more on that subconsciously than it is my actual what I need as a business or what I need. And it's like, and it's easy to do that. And it's like you forget, oh wait, I have all those tools, but this is what got me likes, and this is what got me attention, and this is what got me this. So I drive towards that, and all the skill sets I have, not even just in the career as a cinematographer, the person are you as a whole, like they kind of hit that back burner a little bit. So it's like it's important to step back and introduce those changes because you might be good working with your hands. And your job might not require you to work with your hands. That doesn't mean you sit there and just go, well, it's not useful for my metrics to fucking work with my hands. Like, or if I work with my hands, how can I start my TikTok channel to show that I work with my hands? Because then all of a sudden you're posting about the shit that was supposed to heal you more than you're doing the shit that's supposed to heal you. So it's like, it's such a weird evolutionary space we're in. And it's like taking a deep breath sometimes and just doing something just to do it, I think is so necessary.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because like there's lots of different things that I like to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, one part of the conversation, yes, is getting caught up in, are these actually like hobbies you enjoy to do? Or are these all like side hustles, like career things you want to try and do? But then the other side of it is like, am I self-expressing or am I mirroring everything else around me and trying to be what quote unquote they want me to look like or be? And that's where that struggle I think pops up a lot for me. Like wanting to create in so many different ways, whether it be graphic design or photo or video or script writing or podcasting or whatever. Social media doesn't understand that.
No.
Like social media and yes, there's like, you've always got your core group of people who are like, yes, whatever you do, I love. But I know the vast majority, like, I'm not going to get a bunch of interactions on things or get this constant, like, nice influx of followers or whatever, because I feel like sometimes my social media and what I do can be confusing to people because they're like, hold on, dude, you shared this music video you directed the other day, and then today you're on a podcast, but then you're on a different podcast that's not yours. Like, but then you posted a photo. Are you a photographer though? But then what is this design work you're sharing? You're not a design. Like, it's weird because I don't think people can just like, and I think this is because social media has trained the viral nature of things of like, it has to be this thing. And then there's trends and marketing trends and branding and all this sort of stuff. But like, I don't think people dig down and like see the core of something of like, oh, Ross is just a creative and does this in many different ways. Drew is just a creative and does this in many different ways. I bet he has these talents. It's the classic reason as to why, like, in Josh and I's work together, that's why we separated our music video brand from like our wedding and commercial brands. Like, each of those are different entities that some people are like, why do you have 19 different brands? It's like, well, because if I tried to get hired for this commercial and what they saw was a music video, they can't decipher, oh, you're a talented video director. They are saying, what is this metal music? And I just think it's this big mess.
Like, I've literally had people who've seen my music video reel and work go, and like, I'll have a friend who'll be like, yo, I know this guy Drew, he can shoot this for you. Like, he's a great DP. He'll make it look great. And then he'll show them that side of me, and they'll go, yeah, this looks really cool, but I don't want my thing to look like a music video. And
It's not what we're looking for.
Why would it look like a music video? Like, I obviously I would look at your situation, what you need out of the project, and the story you're trying to tell. And of course, I have my own style, but I would seek to voice that style through you. But your story comes first, and it wouldn't be a good story if I was just pigeon-horning a music video looking like. Why would I do that?
You're not gonna copy and paste your creative to things like.
And if you don't, and you're right, but if you don't send them that other side of you, and go like, no, here's this other side, and then they're like, oh, okay, but it's like, why would you think I only had the skill set to do that?
It's so weird.
It's the weirdest.
It's so strange. I don't think it'll ever change, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really don't. I feel like, again, you'll have the people who do understand. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this is like a life-ending, terrible circumstance to have. But it is a strange thing that I don't know if it'll ever change, because I think just in the same way of the life machine of work and then dinner and then sleep and whatever the normal machine is that we can all get caught up in, I think there's a social media machine. Definitely. And it's just the nature of scrolling or tapping through stories and not even paying attention to what you're actually looking at. Are you really reading the caption? Are you, this or are you just scrolling?
Yeah.
And I think that's a machine a lot of other people get caught up in as well. Of they're just going to scroll through and they're not going to really see the context of why you're posting, or, oh, hey, he did commercial work, or he did video work, or he shared a poem that he wrote, or made a cool meal because his hobby is he loves to cook. Like, are they really going to connect with those things? Or is it like, oh, picture. And then the weird thing is those same people who would do that will then close and be like, social media sucks. Yep. And I'm like, because you're not using it right.
And it's so weird. Like, one thing I noticed the other day is like, we don't even separate our business styles. We separate ourselves. Like, I have a personal and a business social media, and like that's a natural thing we all kind of do. But especially as creatives, like, all of this is intertwined for us. Like, and I start getting. I don't post on my personal at all because I have anxiety about like the me part of it, and what, like, if I'm on my professional Instagram, is it all right for me to show myself cooking?
Interesting. Okay.
But this side of me, they know this part of me, but I kind of want them to know this part of me too. But if I don't keep them set, and you start getting in your own head, and what's weird too is like you start actually meeting people and talking to them, people don't give a shit.
Right.
Like, and some people do, some people don't, and it's such a jumbled thing that it breaks your brain a little bit. And like I try to not forget that we as human beings we're fucking time machine. These bodies we're in our time, like it's like having, like, social media is like having like a U-Haul or one of those old ass 1920s cars with a new Bluetooth speaker in it. Like, that's what we are. Like, we're still the same creatures we've always been. It's like we just have this inundation of information that's constantly hitting us, and images that are constantly hitting us. So we're not supposed to feel comfortable with this. Like, this isn't something we're supposed to get. We're not designed to get it.
Oh yeah, we're not ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you feel anxiety about it, like, don't. It's easy to be hard on yourself, but sometimes you got to remember, like, yeah, I'm not supposed to feel completely comfortable with this. Like, none of this is real anyway. Like,
it's not real, and it's all brand new. Just in the last handful of years of learning how to be able to communicate with anyone in the world at any point in time.
Yeah, like that is such a thing. So it's like, and we put this pressure on ourselves that we're not doing it right. Like, we're supposed to do that shit right. Like, communicating across the world, across platforms, across languages instantaneously, and post 3 times a day. And like, you're not supposed to be able to do that right, because no one does that right. Like, so we put this anxiety, and my only problem, I'm not one of those social media, like, social media is the devil, man. I'm not one of those people. But it's like, I think the only problem with it is that we're sacrificing our real lives for it. So it's like the experiences that we were talking about earlier, where you just need to jump into something just to jump into it and let it develop you. We don't, because of that. And that's where the detrimental part comes, where you're starting to fabricate a personality and fabricate experiences, and like, and you're reliving the same experience, you're wearing the same dirty laundry over and over again, because those are experiences you have, and you don't feel you have time to experience something new. So you're just digging into the same lot of shit that you've been your entire life, and it's like, and that can lead, at least for me, it led to really like a real stagnant feeling within my work, within my art, and it's like conversations with, and that's what I found, like the most work and stuff and I get has been through meeting people, like hanging out with you, hanging out with Ed HD, hanging out with Will and all these people we know, and just in the community, going to events, speaking to actual people has led to infinitely more jobs than me posting on social media. And like, I can't say I'm not the social media guru at all. I'm not good at it. So I might just be hating right now. But like that's what messes with my motivation with it, because it's like when I have a 6-hour conversation with you at Tim Hortons, like that leads to so much more creativity and stress relief and new ideas. And I started writing a horror after we met. Like,
that's so cool.
That doesn't, those, you see stuff that inspires you on social media, but because of the constant speed of scrolling and you're not sitting in something to experience it, you'll have it for a second, you'll bookmark it, and you'll tell yourself you'll go back to it, and maybe you might, but it never really hits your spirit like it should. But a 6-month conversation like 2-3 years ago is something I still remember now, and has developed me creatively from that. So it's like, that's kind of where I feel my time should be spent. Like, and I do feel this urge to, like, especially when it comes to stories, but to share and stuff like that on social media. So I don't think there's something wrong with it, but like physical textual experiences, I think, need to be a wave.
Well, I think it's so much of just like figuring out what you want out of social media and what you want to give to it. Like for me, for years, I definitely was caught up in the like, oh my gosh, what trendy thing can I do? How come this is getting more likes and that's not getting more likes? Yeah. And I teetered on the edge of, and you kind of explain this in that I teetered on the edge of creating for social media, because you were talking about getting caught up in your same cycles that become comfortable, and I think what that turns into with social media is the thing that gets you the attention.
Yeah.
So like when this type of content got me a lot of likes and views, so I'm gonna keep just creating that over and over. That's like the current thing is Reels on Instagram because they want to be TikTok. Like I'll make Reels, that's fine. Like I'll do that. That's okay. But I'm not going to shift my creative focus into making things for Reels.
For Reels, yes.
Will I turn something into a Reel when I feel like it? Of course. Yeah, sure. I'll throw this up on a Reel. You know, I want it I at least want it to get seen. You know, sure. I can make this piece that's specific for Reels. But I'm not going to, and it's okay for the people that do, but like, I'm not going to do the whole like, 5 tips for you to become a videographer. Like, hey, if you want to do that, that is dope. Have fun with that. Yeah. I cannot have fun with that. I do not want to do that. I am not going to take time out of my day to sit and be like, what song do I want to dance and point to today so I can play into the social media game? Like, and I know I'm being very negative with that. And I'm being a hater, but like, I'm just not going to create in that sense.
I think it's so much about your motivations, and I think you lose sight of what your motivations really were with that. And it's like, to me, if you want to create 5 tips because it hits your spirit in the moment, you know what? These 5 things are things that I think about that I think would help people. Yes.
Then boom, there you go.
But if you have, oh fuck, I was supposed to post 3 Reels today. I don't know what I'm going to post. And it's just this force-fed, and it's like, that's fine, I think, when it's, even outside of the creative realm, it can be whatever. But when you're in the creative realm and you're creating for versus creating organically, that becomes a real dangerous space to live in mentally. And I think you're right. Like, it's the for part. It's I'm going to do reels just because a reel needs to be made, and I scheduled it for Thursday, and I had the deadline is coming up, and you didn't get into this shit for that. You didn't. Like, so, and there's nothing wrong, because all that structure is definitely needed, so I don't want to feel like I'm attacking that, but it's so, you're analyzing your true motivations behind what you're doing, like, is so important. And it's so easy to just continue making this a new machine after new machine in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to take the time to, because like at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you. And it's like, this life is short. So it's like, you come from the earth, you go back to it. So it's like, while you're here, to me, I know part of the reason why I feel those experiences are important is because of that. Like, I'm not one of these people who's like, yeah, you need to become the greatest so you can live forever and people are going to remember you. Fuck that. Like, some asshole 100 years from now who farts and shits just like you can remember you. Like, fuck that dude. Like I don't have, I think it's human greed and humans wanting to live forever that pushes us in that direction. And I understand that, but it can literally get in the way of you truly experiencing life as it is in the space you're in right now if you get too caught up in that. Like, and when you're getting hit over it constantly while you're scrolling, like, and it can be hard to separate yourself from it. So,
well, something I want to dive honestly back into a little bit. Something you said earlier of like the idea of, separating your social profiles and that worry of like, oh, well, if I share, my cooking on my professional blah, blah, like that's like, honestly, on that point, I honestly always tell people, own everything you do in your social media profile. Mm-hmm. And if you want to, when it becomes separate, at least in my opinion, when it becomes separate is when you want to brand something. Yeah. So for me, we'll use the marketing content brand that I do for musicians, right? Yeah. So I work release campaigns for them, design all this content. Mm-hmm. That I wanted to establish as its own brand. Yes, I am doing the work. It's still me. I'm still going to promote it and talk about it. But I wanted it to be a brand. Mm-hmm. So on that social media profile, that's where you're going to see all that work be shared. And of course, I'll share it via my story. Like, hey, just toss this up, new portfolio work up, whatever. Yeah. Check it out if you want. Like, I'll share it when it needs to be shared. But I'm not like, worried about like, how can I make that a brand, but also me, like it's an extension of me, but I understand I wanted to brand it a certain way. Yeah. Where even though I mentioned earlier, sometimes I feel like my social media can be confusing for people.
It's you.
To our point, I don't care because it's me. Because I am just going to own, rather than being like, okay, my personal is where I will post my selfies and my music that I'm listening to and my meals that I eat. But then I'll have a videography Instagram, and then I'll have a photography Instagram, and then I'll have my design Instagram, but then I'll have, this podcast has its own Instagram because it is its own brand and its own show. It's an extension of me, and I talk about it and I post about it, but it's its own entity that needs its own thing. And like, I feel like I often have that talk with people where they're like, oh man, I really want to, I have this hobby of cooking, or I have this hobby of playing music, but like, I don't know if my Instagram would like it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. So like, even if you're ever thinking about it, of like, how much of my stuff do I need to keep separate, and how much of I'm always on team you. Yeah. I am always on team like, dude, shit, I'm about to knock over the mic. I'm getting so hyped. I am always on team like, cool. However you want to lay out your socials, do that. But just own everything that you do and everything that you are on one. If it's video work, if it's photo work, if it's business work, if it's cooking for fun, if it's freaking taking your dog on a walk, if it's working out, like whatever it is, like own everything that you are. Like if you start working out a bunch, you don't have to make a workout Instagram. Yeah. Just like you were saying earlier, of me being like, I need to hear, not everything has to be a career goal and a freaking thing, like, because you can have hobbies. And I think it's super important to remind yourself to just own all of that.
Yeah.
When it needs to be branded and you can clearly separate, this is a brand, but it's an extension of me, and that's fine, but it's a brand, then yes, have the different social pages, have the different outlets, all that sort of stuff. But at the core that ties everything, all these things you do together, is you.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to own. So it's not these fabrications of, am I posting reels today? Am I posting this? It's like, don't create for the machine. You can create and be a part of the machine, but also be like your own machine within the grand machine. You know what I mean? Like, have your cycle of things where I want someone to sit and be like, man, if I go to Ross's Instagram, I know there's just going to be a plethora of different things to look at. I can check out podcasts. I can check out music videos, short films, freaking whatever it is. And maybe that's confusing to somebody. If Gary Vee were sitting here, he'd be like, you need to make 97 reels a day, or, you know, whatever. I don't know. But, you know, that's, I think, the even larger problem with social media stuff is everybody pushes be authentic.
Yeah.
But then that immediately turns into, well, be authentic for the machine.
Yeah.
Authentically create, but make sure you post 3 reels a day.
Yep.
Like, no. That doesn't make any sense. Like,
and I realize, like, it's so, people want to say be authentic, but they don't want to have the greater conversation as who are you as a human being? Because that's the only thing that your authenticity derives from. And I was thinking the other day just about, like, how do you raise, like, just in life, like, raising kids, or just, like, in life, how do you raise confident, authentic people? And then I realized most parents aren't confident, authentic people. So how are they going to trickle that information down to some kid? And I kind of started realizing it because just getting older, I realized I thought there would be this spot that I'd reach where, because now I have friends with kids and married and that are older. And when I was a kid, I thought everyone had it figured out. And you look at your parents and you look at older people in your life, and then you're starting to edge into that. And you always kind of know, especially like once you're early 20s, teenagers, you do know that, like, no one really has it figured out. But as time passes, you really start to, in a really emotional, tangible way, start to realize how no one knows what the fuck they're doing. And so people will push this idea of authenticity on social media, or authenticity based on the machine. But if you start to have a real authentic conversation, you'll find you're not as welcome in those same exact spaces. So saying one thing and doing the other, it's especially when it comes to something like authenticity, which is really a powerful thing. Like the other day, someone was telling me, make sure you're careful around so-and-so. I'm not going to put their name out there, because if he finds out that he's a judgy person and he might think this of you. And when I was young, not even when I was young, I didn't tend to give two shits about that. But it just made me laugh a little, because it's like, so you want me to fabrication in a moment extends out into the other parts of your life. So either he'll accept me for what I am here, or he won't. But I can't take that home with me every day. And it's like, back in the day, it just used to be a person you had to fake in front of. Now your phone's with you all the time. Now the thing you think, I'm only faking a little bit while I have this phone in my hand. You're not really. As soon as you click that side or top button or whatever the fuck, and your screen turns black, that interaction hasn't changed. That what you just put out, that falseness, even if it's something small, that's still flowing back in through your veins. Like, so you're not just leaving that there. Like, you're taking that with you. And it comes off so casual that you can forget how bullshit all of it is. And then before you know it, your existence outside of that world is truly affected by it. So it's something you just have to be so careful about. I don't even say careful because it's like it's life. I don't know, like, but it's so easy to slip into, and you're there before you realize it. And it's like, if you're a creative or like sometimes you're a perfectionist or this or that, instead of going into, okay, let me take a step back and let me just do some stuff and enjoy it. Let me go take a walk. You'll start to criticize yourself about why did you let this happen, and why you were supposed to be a true creative and you were supposed to tell, and why did you? So you go into a phase of beating yourself up about it. And it turns into this weird cycle, and like an easy way to make yourself feel better about not doing something properly, especially when it comes to falsehoods or social media or whatever, is to go back and do it right. But like we said before, you can't really do this shit right. So then you jump back in and you do some more, and then and it's not even about other people seeing you as false. It's about you yourself. Like we had a conversation before that it's about you doing something in your gut feels wrong. And like, even if no one else notices it, you know it. So then you go beat yourself up again. And if you're a perfectionist or if you're someone who wants to get it right, then you go back, I got to go back and do it right. And now you're just cycling. And now you have a new machine. And now you're putting yourself through this constant abusive cycle. And I'm just saying, woodworking might jump you out into something else, out of that cycle. Or a little change might be able to make that jump. So
yeah, and that's like that. I feel like is the balance that, again, I'm not some social media guru of like, oh, I use mine perfectly, blah blah blah. Yeah. But it's like I've been through those cycles enough of, oh, people really like when I post this, so I should post this, and then that ends up just making me angry. So I'm like, fuck that, I'm gonna post what I want to post. And like realistically, when it comes down to social media, like I know we're being super negative about it. Like I do love sharing on social media. It really is dope. I love sharing. But not like I've been making sure that I get myself out of that, like sharing for attention. Yeah. Like I just had a friend of mine the other day who I hadn't seen him in forever, and we kind of casually keep up via social media. And he explained to me, he was like, dude, he's like, just so you know, he's like, every one of your like long like journal entry captions that you like express all these things, and he's like, I read every one of those. Yeah. And he's like, and I love those. And you make me think and you make me feel and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that is dope. I don't need like a million likes on it to make me feel correct for sharing. Yeah. And I'm not writing that journal entry worth of a caption to sit and be like, this is going to go viral. Yeah. I'm doing it because I do like using my social media in that way. I'm not saying everybody has to. Yeah. But that's my way of being authentic, is being just super transparent. And whether it's explaining how a project was made or explaining how I dealt with depression that week or imposter syndrome or whatever it is, like I like to have those conversations on social media. And when I do that, it does spawn some fun conversations in the DMs. There's, you know what I mean? Where somebody reaches out and is like, dude, you sharing this really like made me feel better about that, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's awesome. So yes, is it all being put on a platform of like, look at me and look at this and look at this cool picture I took or look at this cool picture of me or whatever. But that spawns from, I love to create things and I love to share on the internet. And so it's finding that balance.
I will give you your flowers because I do love your social media. I love like those like written descriptions of an image. I love that shit.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Those are so dope. Like, so I will give you your flowers now. Like to me, that's one of the ways to do it right, to just express and to enjoy social media for what it is. Like it is a useful tool, and not even in a business way. Like I'm looking for an apartment, and I never use social media in this way because I always looked at it as like a creative collection of, and I just did hashtag furniture. I was just looking at dope ass furniture. I was like, yo, this is the shit. Like, it is a dope tool. Like for what it is.
You just have to figure out how you want to use it for you.
You have to figure out how you use it for you, and you have to get out of the side hustle, work nonstop mentality. You can look at some furniture without having to go, how do I curate the? You don't have to do that. Like, just you can enjoy it for what it is and not overly worry about it.
Mm-hmm. So. And again, it's balancing that. I know we're just so stuck in the social media talk, but it's balancing what your life is. And I don't want us to pass over something that we talked about earlier of you said that we kind of lost hobbies.
Yeah.
And I could not agree more, because I know I did. And that is like a lot of the changes. That's why I said, dude, we're having this conversation at the perfect time.
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of restructuring my life a little bit to allow room for hobbies and just casual enjoyment.
Yeah.
And reminding myself that not everything has to turn into a side hustle or a money-making venture.
And it's okay.
And it's like, I recently, like one of the big things, I recently started going to the gym.
Nice.
And of course, everybody wants to go to the gym. Everybody wants to work out and be in good shape and take care of yourself. So, of course, there's that side of it. But I also was just like, I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day.
Yeah.
I don't want to freaking be on a set every day, all day, or whatever. Like, I love those things. But having done that for a near decade straight of that nonstop, it's like, you know how dope it feels when like I start my day by going to the gym for like an hour or an hour and a half, and then I'm home and I'm like, wow, I like challenged myself today.
And it's beautiful because you learn from it, and it's something you're learning from something and developing something that is completely outside of what you normally are.
It's a genuine challenge.
As Ross, it's a genuine challenge. Like, you can learn genuine perseverance from that doesn't have to do with being on a set. Like, all that is so important. And it's like, this idea that a financial end should define every fucking thing we do is like, just as simple as going to the gym is so goddamn important. Like, and not as in a health nut way, just like as a life development way. There's so many lessons to just be learned from that, and it's I'm going literally through the same thing, like where I had a couple moments where I looked back and been like, I don't have a life. And not in a I was like, in a for real way of it, I literally don't exist beyond the walls of what I'm trying to build. Like, everything is that. And because everything is that, I'm starting to reach a wall of how much I can build because I don't have anything else to draw from. I'm just drawing from this. So it's like, what, and you think you couldn't draw from, like even if you keep it on going to the gym, but from the way you approach it, from the people you'll meet there, from the words someone will say to you that will stick in your head, like, all of that will help you lay more bricks in the thing you're trying to create. So it's like getting anxiety about, I'm doing this other thing, or feeling guilty about the hobbies you have. It's so self-destructive. And it's so weird because I've been asked by people like, well, how does that relate to your thing? I thought you were this.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's not just us. It's like people have been retrained to think like that. And it's like, well, are you going to now do a video? Are you going to do a work? Like, no, I'm not. I'm just going to go out here and enjoy this shit. Yep. Like, that's it. I'm going to go on a fucking hike.
Dude, that's another thing on my list of like things that I'm doing.
When I was out in when I went to LA, that's one thing I made it a point to do. Like, I'm out here. It's totally different from Ohio. Like, black people don't hike, but I'm a hike. And literally that was my mindset. Like, I don't even mean to take it there, but it's like, that was my mindset. Like, just experience that. And I brought my camera. I put it in my bag, and I was going to maybe do some shooting and some time-lapsing or whatever. And I took it out once because I saw a lizard. Shot a couple pictures of it. They looked fine. And then I just was like, no. I just put it back. Like, no. Like, not everything needs to turn into, I can take in this moment right now. Like, I can find hike to a nice spot and just get an overview of the world around me, and then digest it for what it is, have moments, have thoughts about it for what it is, and then take my ass back home. That's it.
Yep. And it's allowing yourself to gather experiences. Like, that's something that, again, I think I got lost in for so many years, is I wouldn't, not just not let myself have hobbies, because all my hobbies turned into work and careers. Yeah. I still enjoyed them. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not sitting and being like, I regret everything I've done. Like, it's not that. But it is, like you said, like, outside of these walls, what is my life? Like, when all this is stripped away, who am I? When no one else is around, who am I? And like, I've literally been having so much fun recently, just compiling. Like, I have a note in my phone that literally I have listed like things to do for fun. Yeah. And I just add anything that comes to mind. I'm like, oh, it'd be fun to go on a hike once a month. Yeah. Or once a week, or go actively go to the gym. And then I talk with Will about this, because he's doing it, of like going to the gym, but then learning a form of combat, like boxing, or a form of MMA or jiu-jitsu or something like that, of like just to do it. Not because all of a sudden I want to be a UFC fighter, but because that's another way to get my body active and working and learning a new skill and challenging myself to learn something. And all these things of like, even small things like, I want to go and I want to go like once a month to a local restaurant in Columbus that I've never been to and eat there. Just one time a month. Just go, instead of just ordering pizza from the same place, or going to Chipotle for the millionth time, or whatever it is, or even just staying at home and cooking at home and not going out and experiencing anything. Like, those sound like such small, like nonsensical, like, really that's a goal for you, but like, it's important. It is. It's so important to just do casual things, of go on a jog or go on a hike or a walk, or go learn a skill. Like, learning those new things that aren't just like, okay, I've learned how to video direct and that is it. That's great. I'm learning how to write a script and that is great. That's it. Like, I've learned all the technical things of this camera. Like, no, like, what are other life skills that I can learn
and inspire me? And like, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like, people will be like, oh, is that it? But a lot of times if you talk to those same people and you're like, when was the last time you did something even a little bit different? They pause, because until you ask that question to yourself or to someone else asks you, you stop really realizing that you've really stopped experiencing the world around you. You really have. Like, you've really got caught. It's easy, and it's not anyone's fault, because it's easy to do, and I think it's natural to do. Like, it's natural to just want to be in you get tired. You want to be in your safe space. I just want to go here. I want to do this, and I want to go home, and I don't want to blah 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 blah. And it's like, so it's understandable, but it's not gonna grow you. And at the end of the day, like, if you want to free yourself a little bit, I think it can be found in just those small things or big things. Like, I really was thinking about packing up my car, turning my SUV into a camper, and just traveling across the country. Like, there's an app called the Dirt app, and it lists national parks, and camping out across the U.S. And of course, my brain immediately went, "Ooh, I can start a YouTube channel." And then, and I was like, "No,
series,
yeah." But no, like, just doing that, and then you start researching, you find that people do this all the time. They'll spend months. I found my brother's old passports, and he's filled passports. Like, that's how much. And I just listed out all the places he traveled to, and one of my buddies who travels, he hit me up. He was like, yo, bro, I think late October, I want to go to Budapest. I bought some tickets. You trying to be down? You want to meet me there? And I'm like, okay. Like, and then he was like, well, I think they're closed now, but I think that hopefully by that time they'll reopen. So we'll see what happens. I'm just going to buy the ticket and figure it out. And at first my brain was like, really? Like, you're not going to wait until the blah, 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 blah. But he's right. Like, no. Like, right now, pick something and go, Budapest. Let's do this. Fight to make it happen. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it happens, it happens. But you'll gain so much more out of that than overanalyzing the situation and being like, well, the Delta virus just came out and it's taking this population by force. So I predict that the tickets aren't going to be you'll end up analyzing yourself out of all your experiences in life. So it's like, sometimes, like I was saying, you got to take that leap. Just take a step off the cliff. And you'll always, not once have I looked back and been like, fuck, I shouldn't have did that shit. it's always been looking at that. That was a lot smaller of a fall than I thought it was, or it wasn't even a fall at all. Like, and I'm trying to get back to doing that. Like, it's weird. It's a weird reawakening, and I didn't really expect it, but I'm happy my mind is there, and the goal for me is to keep it there, at least for a while, until whatever next development comes.
Yeah. That's the cycle that I want to get myself in, given the last couple months. I'm like, I want to find these new hobbies. I want to challenge myself in new ways and put myself in some uncomfortable situations to try something new, so then I can just have a new life experience. Yeah. It is like figuring out like, okay, like how can I make these experiences or these skills or whatever that I pick up become the next version of who I am, and not just like get hyped on like, this summer's going to be rad, bro. Like, why stop at the summer? Yeah. Like, don't just sit and be like, oh, this summer's going to be sick because I'm going to go to blah, blah, blah. And then like right back to like what's normal.
It's like, no.
No, like take that with you and maybe like a fun thing that I want to do. Cause I mean, we've talked about horror movies plenty and I love paranormal stuff. Like, I've never been ghost hunting. Yeah. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, that's still a fun experience.
Thank you.
And I'm like, that's literally, I've added that to my list. Yeah. I'm like, how have I never went ghost hunting? And I'm not talking like it's Halloween. Like, this is what I mean. It's not the Halloween, like, we should go get scared. Yeah. Like, it's not that of like some terrible haunted house. Like, I want to go somewhere with historical relevance that is like, yo, hey, there's been a lot of unexplained weird stuff that's happened here, and we allow people to go in and experience it for themselves and see what happens. You could just stand in the dark for 6 hours and nothing happens, but that would still be a fun experience. So then I can sit and say, I went ghost hunting. After loving ghost hunting shows growing up and loving everything paranormal, I can say that I went and experienced a ghost hunt. And there's no expectation past that. I don't have to make a vlog out of like, what's up guys, it's Ross, I'm going ghost hunting.
Exactly.
Like, that's not the goal. It's like, that's just on my list of things that would be fun life experiences. That's it.
And you have a story and you're building your story just as Ross. Like, it's funny how we're storytellers, but we forget to build our own stories. Like, no, we all have our stories too. Like, yes, you're an artist and you might draw, you might this, and you're building that, but don't forget about your story. Like, it's fun telling all these other people's stories, or it's fun telling these stories from your imagination, but like, build that story what book are you going to write, as they say. It's like, build your own story too. Like, have fun with that shit. Like, go, like, what the time you'll be ghost hunting, what else would you be doing? Like, sometimes I think about that. It's like, what else the fuck am I doing? I'm not doing shit. Like, like me going out on this hike and seeing this scenery or doing this thing that I've never seen before. Like, even if it's mediocre or whatever, it's better than me just chilling at the crib, like
editing for another day,
and like, so. And even if it is, especially if it's terrible, that's even better. That makes a better story. Like. Those are all, we can all look back at shit in our lives that's been like, that we thought would be great, and then we got into it and it was fucked up, and then years later you look back and you just laugh at all of it. Like, that's the fun part too. Like, it's, this painful shit is supposed to be there as well. Like, don't look at that as a foreign entity either, which I think a lot of times we do. It's like pain and suffering and all of this, like, these are all organic parts of our human existence. It's not going anywhere because it's not supposed to. So it's like, when it happens, understand that it's happening because that's supposed to happen as well. Like, this isn't something that shouldn't be happening to you. Like, why is this happening? No, this should be happening to you. So it's like, even if you do go out there and this thing sucks or whatever, like, my stepsister wanted to go to like Yosemite, and they're like, oh, what if you go out there and somebody kidnaps you, and like, you're a girl, you can't travel alone, and all of that is valid. There are some crazy ass people out there as well, and I'm not saying go get kidnapped for the love of the suffering. I'm not doing that shit. But like, you have to don't be a fear monger in your own life. Like some of these experiences aren't always going to turn out great. And a lot of times they're not going to be horrible either. It's just going to be something you did, and it'll be a fun story. It'll be something you can look back on, be something you can check off that list so that when you do die and you do go, you lived a full life. Like,
Yep.
that's what I'm interested in doing, and not a full life so I can go and tell others. So 100 years from now, somebody could be like, yo, this Drew dude was the shit. Fuck that. Like, just for myself, like, for my own spirit, while I'm here, just for that. Like, and sometimes that's all it has to be. Like, it doesn't have to extend beyond that. Like, it is. We don't all have to be the Kevin Harts of the world. Like,
Right.
we don't have to jump off of planes. Like, we don't. It doesn't. Just for yourself, like, do something like that.
Has this mindset always been with you? Like, have you always like had this outlook, or where does that come from? Like, was this like something? Because I mean, we are just having a freaking incredible conversation, and where you have all these like, cool or interesting outlooks on things. Like, growing up, like, did you always kind of feel this way, or was it like ingrained? Were you taught this way? Like, where does it come from?
Part of it, I think, is just me. Part of it is like, I think the weird. Both of my parents are very different spirits. So my mom was a former creative who kind of got family forced her to do a traditional job because you can't be an artist type of deal. And my dad is super straight-laced, like super conservative, old school style. And my mom had a whole thing about, I remember she still had her old paintings. And you could always tell she felt some type of way about leaving that behind. So for her, it was like, I want you guys to figure out and express who you are. And my dad was always very practical. And I think something about that push and pull maybe did something. But then again, it's like, I always do remember getting in trouble for for being in my own world. As my dad, especially my dad would say, like if you put me in a corner, looking around, it wouldn't bother me. Like, so maybe that, but I've always wanted to just, I guess, live life for what it is. Like, I think we overcomplicate this shit a lot, and it's like even that question is like, I'm not saying even that question, like, now that I'm trying to look back on my life right now and be like, okay, why do I think like this? But it definitely, part of it is learned experiences. Part of it's maybe that parental push and pull, like, and then I think it's also like, I remember my mom, she stopped painting. She used to be a painter, sold art, was decent, like, and stopped doing it. And then years later, she came back when she was like 50 and sold her first painting after decades. And that space of what would have been life been if she had followed that original girl's path? What would that have been like? Because it's obviously, it wasn't a skill thing. It was just having it in you to be like, no, to be cognizant of what the issue is and just be like, no, I'm going to trust myself on this. And I don't know. Like, I do definitely know it's not something I think that one experience developed. I think in life, like, sometimes we look at that, like, we're like, what's the one thing that changed your, but I don't think it really works like that. Like, we're slowly evolving into something, and then we turn around and look at ourselves and we're like, wait a minute, how'd I get here? Like, I think it's one of those things.
Yeah. Now, was creativity always there for you? Like, during because I mean, mom's being a painter, I would assume it's probably there. Yeah. But you sit here now and DP and videographer, all this sort of stuff, and in this whole creative world that we're in, like,
it was, I guess it was naturally kind of where I gravitated towards. But like, school wise, like, my trained background was in the sciences. Like, I went to Michigan State. I went to school. I studied human physiology for 3 years until I had a awakening moment. Like I was in this program through their osteopathic medical school to guide students into medical school. I was that guy. I was on that path. The creative thing wasn't. I worked in a lab.
Wow.
As a lab assistant, that wasn't, and it was more because it wasn't. I don't even know if it wasn't accepted. It was just something I was supposed to do, and I don't mind. I love science. I don't mind it, but I remember as part of it's a huge moment in my life. Like, I guess this is one of those moments. Like, as a part of their osteopathic medical school, Michigan State, they have you all take a class where doctors come in once a week and they tell you about the reality of it, of truly reality of being a doctor, not just the money and the student loans. What's the reality of it? How much of them hate it? How much of them love it and their experiences with it? A lot of them fucking hate it. And there's this one doctor who I related to so much, like, because at the beginning of the class, they were like, if 50% of you decide not to do this, we'll believe that this class was a success. And of course you go in and you're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm built for this. Like, talking about I'm be the next Ben Carson, the Ben Carson before he became this Ben Carson. But so you go, you don't believe it, and then they start telling the realities of not just in the hospital, their actual lives. I remember this doctor came in. I was walking to class, drove in nice BMW, stepped out, suit fresh. I'm like, ooh, that's gonna be me. And then walked into class and we were talking to him, and he's a cardiologist, incredibly successful, all that. But we found out that he hated it. And we were like, well, you work so much. When do you get to see your family? Like, when do you get to see your wife? He was like, just flat face, I don't like my wife. Didn't laugh. And you giggle, you're like, ha ha ha, you don't like your wife, funny, and nothing. Just stone face. We were like, well, what about your kids? I don't really like my kids either. And he just had this real moment in front of us and with us where he was just talking about how he didn't ever want to become a doctor. He was good at science, but he didn't know what else he wanted to do, and he was too scared to figure it out, which I think is the place a lot of people are in. They don't know what they want to do. They're too scared to reach out on the limb because whatever ego or self they've built for themselves, if they fail at it, they don't know what that'll mean for themselves as a person. So they just go with what's comfortable. So their parents were like, I want you to be a doctor. They pushed him in that direction. And then what he found is him taking that path deteriorated everything else in his life. Like, just kind of like we were talked about earlier, those moments of phoniness you have on your phone or when you're talking to somebody or when you're faking in front of this person or that person, those moments don't stop there. They seep into you and they stay with you. And that's what we found. So now it's to the point where he doesn't like his wife. He doesn't like his kids. He doesn't like anything in general. All joy has been sucked out of this man's life from the point because of that one path he took. And on paper, it's extremely successful path. Like, it looks great. Right when he was walking in class that day, I was envious. I was like, yo, look at this. Yo, he got the goddamn. And I was excited. And then it's funny how 20 minutes later, I had no idea that I would be looking at him completely differently just because of an honest conversation we were having. And that really opened me up to, okay, I got to be super fucking careful. Like, these aren't small decisions. You casually forgetting about your hobby seems like it's not a big deal. That's a big fucking deal in the grand scheme of things because it's a snowball effect. It builds onto things. And you'll look back, like I've looked back and been like, wait, who the fuck am I outside of any of this shit? And that's, I think, one of those moments, especially when I learned, like, oh, I have to be conscious of what I'm doing, who I am. And so after that, I remember it's funny because I went to a guidance counselor I've been with since I was a freshman year. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I really enjoy this. And she was like, yeah, I've always kind of thought that about you. And it's like, really? Like, you've known me for 3 years and you just now are like, but she, and it's corny because I took this class or this test, and it was like, kind of breaking down who you are as a person and what you like. And that was an ego thing for me because I was like, how the fuck are you going to tell me who? And so you don't even want to go down that path. But at that point, I was just like, I just want to try something that will open me up in a different way than I am right now. Because if this ain't working now, 20 years of this shit definitely ain't going to fix itself. And I don't want to end up that dude talking about how I hate my kids in front of a classroom of strangers. I don't want that shit. So that's how I found out about anthropology and communicating cultures and learning about storytelling and ideas that way and how that has such an effect on the human experience. So my training degree is in anthropology. I thought I would, and I had already been working in a research lab and I loved research. So I was like, I'm going to travel and write books. That's what I'm going to do. And I remember telling a person in my family, I almost said that who the person was, and they said, who would read your book? Go apply to medical school. And my brain at the time was like, it didn't register it as this person was telling me what I was doing was a waste of time. For some reason, I realized that like a second after. My brain was like, yeah, people don't read books anymore. I should do documentaries. And that's the only reason I picked up a camera. That's literally it.
Wow.
And then right after that, I was like, wait a minute, this person just dissed. Like, who you talking to? Like, but that's the only reason I picked up a camera, because I wanted to communicate. So I really started in documentary stuff, like when I first picked up a camera. But it's funny how just that one taking, and that's why I was saying, it doesn't have to be big. Like just me realizing something about my life is off. I know I'm not happy, and even if on paper I'm doing fine, this shit ain't working. Like, just like you, like you realize something was off. You said, like, which I really want to ask you about, why you almost quit doing video in 2020. But you're like, something has to change. Just that is a huge step of change for yourself. So you got to give yourself credit for that. And then throwing your ego aside and diving into something new. For me, it was taking that test. For me, it was my guidance counselor saying, look, I think these areas would be great for you. You have enough credits already. I'll figure out a way to, your remaining electives, instead of having them be traditional electives, will allow you to take these classes and we'll apply that as your electives now. And it was really, she was a huge help, because even after changing my majors, a lot of my science courses, they just applied as electives or whatever. So I didn't skip a beat. But then I took an anthropology class and I took an archaeology class and I took these, and it's like, oh, you can feel this way by doing something new. But it's like, just me taking that test and being like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. That's all you need. And it doesn't have to be in an educated environment. It doesn't have to be in you taking an actual test. It could just be you saying, I'm going to take a hike and clear my head. I'm going to go rent an Airbnb somewhere that's not, it could be 10 miles from your house. It could be at a log cabin in Cuyahoga or whatever. It could be, and just clear your head. Don't put a bunch of pressure on yourself. Take a whiteboard or a large piece of paper and just start writing shit down. Your emotions, what you're feeling, what you're struggling with, the things, what makes you happy. Like, a lot of times we immediately jump to what's bothering me. No, what makes you happy? And if you don't know what makes you happy, what are some things I could do to at least try to figure out? And don't worry about feeling stupid during the process. That's the dumbest shit you can do. Worry about being stupid. Don't worry about that. Just try to, and you'll be surprised from going to working in a lab to jumping into, I want to write a book, to people don't read books, to picking up a camera, and now went into documentary stuff. And documentary stuff is so long form. I was like, I want something quicker. That's how I started working around music video commercial-y type stuff. And now, years later, I'm here. I'm not the greatest motherfucker in the world, but I'm at a place where I've found something that feels a little bit right. And there's still some stuff I need to add on to that, but I'm headed at least I feel in the right direction. Like, and that's all it can take sometimes. I think we put this pressure on ourselves to make huge, massive change, which is why when the LA, Ohio thing happened, I'm so happy that I realized that it doesn't have to be LA change. It doesn't have to be pick up my whole life and throw it away change. Maybe that change right there is just enough. And for right now, it feels like just enough. And actually, it feels like more than enough. So it doesn't have to look right on paper. Like sometimes it's just that little thing, and that'll lead to the next thing, and that'll lead to the next thing. And next thing you'll know, you'll be picking up this, and then you'll be doing that. And next thing you'll know, you'll be here. And you'll look back and be like, I didn't plan any of that shit. But sometimes how it ended up right. So stepping off that cliff and stepping out on faith, which I'm not a religious person, sometimes you just got to do it. And you'll look back and be like, it was just a curb. Like,
yeah. Dude, this is such a freaking fun conversation. Like, I feel this is leaning into the territory of like I can see us sitting here for 4 to 6 hours again.
I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize the time. Like,
and this isn't me trying to rush us and be like, hey, let's get it. I'm just like, yeah, there is so much stuff that I want to. Let me ask you this. You know, we're talking about taking these chances and how you found your way into video and all this sort of stuff. Like, because we've had plenty of talks about freelance and self-employment and all that sort of stuff. Was there any time during that time frame where you started to question that? Like, was there ever that test moment in videography where you were like, dude, like, hold on, these are the people that these are the agencies that hire me, or this is what this is what freelance is like? Like, I'm really curious, like, were there any of those moments? Like,
yes. Definitely. And luckily, there's definitely moments like that. And I think you have to differentiate what's causing that moment. You have to analyze what's causing that moment. Is it the work, or is it the videography itself? Is it the people? Is it your internal motivation, like why you started doing it? Has that changed? Which if it has, there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. But I have reached those moments where, especially in this industry, where you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, is any of this? Because a lot of times, especially in this field, it can feel like, there's like a saying I saw one where it's like, it can feel like you're walking into a dark room with a blindfold looking for a black cat. Like, it can feel like that. And you're only using your guiding principles to guide yourself through it. And a lot of times you go through these experiences with agencies and with clients and with people like that, where it starts to deteriorate at your guiding principles. And especially when you're going through, when it feels like you're suffering, where it's like, and it feels like you're suffering for no reason. Like, it doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be this difficult. And why am I doing this? Like, that's definitely a point I've been to. And a lot of times I try to just go back to, I try to re-find what my initial motivation was. And am I reaching that? And if I'm not, how can I change it so that I'm at least stepping into that direction? Because things never, like, especially, this is a genre of or a world of magic. So it's like, it all looks beautiful until you get there and you meet the people, and they're shit, and they're disorganized, and they don't pay on time, and they're assholes, or it's all beautiful until it isn't. So, and you gotta pay rent. It's like, yeah. And you're like, so my thing, and especially one thing I remind myself is to if your motivations are right, just fight and stay in it on a base level. Like, the top level stuff, remember, you don't have to do anything. So it's like, sometimes you're gonna have to learn to say no. Sometimes you're gonna learn not to say not right now. But it's, if your base motivation has changed, then you need to start having a deeper conversation and have that conversation with yourself about, be cognizant of your emotions, because a lot of times your emotions in the moment will make you question whether your base motivation has changed. So my base motivation is to kind of communicate these stories and these cultural ideas and these human experiences and the things that we all go through that we never say and stuff like that. Has that changed? Am I still interested in telling that story? Yeah, I'm still interested in telling that story. Now, is this agency aiding me in telling that story? Maybe, maybe not. I find more often it's a no, like that. It's funny how many people are in this industry that I quite like. Why are you here? It's like you don't have. No one has to do this job. Like you could go do something else. You could be an investment banker and make 10 times more money. Like why the fuck are you doing this shit?
Right.
Like you don't seem to be motivated by any internal like guiding principle or anything like that. You're just here for the ride and to fuck my life. like that's why you're here, isn't it? But it's like you don't take it personally because they got their own journey too. But it's like it is a very, I've definitely been to those experiences, and like going back to what kind of grounds you. And if you find you don't know what grounds you, take that time and figure out what that is, because it's okay to change directions. I've met a lot of people who go, well, once you're in it, you have to win, and you have to go in that direction. If you turn back, that means it's a failure. No, it's not. Like, none of us are winning at any of this shit. Like, we're all gonna go. So the end game is the same. So that has always been my thing. But there's definitely been times where you question, because you don't have to do this. Like, you do this because you love it. So it's like when you start suffering because of it, you start to wonder, like, I am voluntarily putting myself through pain in a way because of these people I deal with and because I need to pay rent. And understanding each job for what it is has helped me a lot. Like, understanding, sometimes I'll be working with a shitty client, and I look back at my base motivations for working with them, and 9 times out of 10, it wasn't for the reason I got into this. It was for financial reasons, or because I felt it could put me a leg up. So my motivations were wrong in the first place. So when I'm getting smacked up, or when I'm getting kickback from that, I can't completely blame them. They do definitely deserve some blame, because they're shitty. People are shitty.
Yeah.
So, but I also have to go back and be like, wait a minute. I took on this client because I wanted some extra cash flow just to make my life simpler. And now that they're not making my life simpler, even if they are giving me the money and I'm doing a little bit better financially, the headache that they've caused is making all this worse. I have to go back and be like, well, Drew, you did. Don't forget what your expectations of them was in the first place. Your expectations of them were to get an easy cash to fund the other creative stuff you were trying to do. So now that you're working with them and they're not meeting your creative or work standards, you can't turn around and forget you didn't take on this client for those reasons in the first place. So if they want dog shit work, at least of what I believe,
Yeah.
it's like you can fight them on it so much, but it is what it is.
Detaching your heartstrings, your creative
so
heartstrings,
difficult.
and your expectations from what you would want out of a project or a process or whatever, like, that's huge. And I think just in the last couple of years have I been able to officially do that, where I would get caught up a lot in this isn't how this is supposed to be, and it could be so much cooler, and why aren't we being more creative, and blah blah blah. And it's like,
They don't.
if that's not what they want, you are here to produce what they want. And
With a little of your funk on it. That's all it's supposed to be.
right. It's like just do the job.
And-
And understand why you got into it.
And if that hurts your soul too much, from the beginning, don't take the job. Mm-hmm. You can eat ramen noodles all day. You'll be straight. Don't take the job.
Yep.
If that means in this moment you got to go to a temp agency and work your ass off to cover them bills for the month, don't do the job. Because doing the job, what I find more and more often, it does hurt your spirit, especially when you get into something with good intentions. So don't always get caught up in the money of it, because just like that doctor, it will deteriorate you. Even if you're overall in a field you like, the small pieces of that can get to you too. And for a lot of people, they'll be like, man, you guys are artists. You're complaining. Your life is easy. Blah, 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 blah. Yes and no. Pain is relative. Like, I've worked some shitty jobs, like, especially when I starting this, because I hit a moment, even after I graduated, I went and I continued on. I was working corporate and blah, 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 blah. And it got to me to the point where I said, nope, I quit. I'd rather work a construction job or in a goddamn factory, I'm from Michigan, than to do this shit anymore. And I did that. So comparing the struggle I go through now, which is important, which is why I think it's important for people to experience things, because you'll experience different struggles and even if it's the struggle of fighting to work out every day, that's a huge, like, that's such an underestimated way of training your discipline. Like, comparing that struggle to when I worked in a factory to dealing with shitty clients, no, like, my body isn't in pain like it was and this and that. But pain is relative, and you are allowed to be upset. Don't ever let anybody be like, yo, man, you can't complain about your clients. I wish I had a client like you did. Everyone says that until they have them. So it's okay to get that out of your system, because I realized for a second, like, we're really complaining about something that not even just everyone. I used to want to be in the position that I'm in now.
Yeah.
And then I got here, and now I'm complaining. But that's completely human and natural to do. Don't feel like you have to hold it in. Fuck them.
Because there's every new level that you grow to, there are going to be new challenges. Like, I literally think about it all the time, and I feel like I say this in conversations a lot, is I can identify right now, I'm like, oh man, like, this client is so dumb, and I just don't want to freaking work with these type of clients anymore. I don't want to do, like, random work anymore. I want this. It's like, I am ready and welcoming the next phase of challenges, because I know that when the day comes that I've got my a feature-length movie done and it's about to be distributed and freaking picked up by whatever agency, I know I'm going to be annoyed by things they want to change with the movie, and the distribution needs to be this and not this. And hey, we think the movie's a little too scary and dark. Can we change it to this? And then I'm going to have those problems and be angry at that. Like, every new level, there's always going to be a new challenge, and there's always going to be something new to complain about.
Yeah. Like, and it's a beautiful thing, because those prior challenges and things and struggles you complained about will all help you and give you tools when you are pitching that. I'm gonna call it into existence. Ross's horror with A24 and having this boss ass rollout and shit like that. Like, all those things are gonna aid you in not only getting that opportunity, but navigating it and dealing with the stress of those issues. So it's like, suffering is supposed to be here to an extent. It can either help you or hurt you. That's gonna be up to you. Like, one thing I did learn about my brother dying is, like, I found I was able to contextualize all of it better than I thought I was going to be. I thought he was only 15 months older than me, so we're best buddies. We talked every day. So I thought it would be harder to, but what I realized from a deeper perspective is just, like, this is life. Like, these pains, these struggles, this is all part of it. It's all going to happen to all of us. It's all going to be a part of it. I remember, and this is a short I want to do one day, where I left his funeral and we're all meeting up at my dad's house. And so I needed gas, and I went to go grab gas, and I pulled in, and there's a homeless guy and a lady at the pump in front of me. And the homeless guy was right about to ask her for some, cause she was trying to, like, look away and ignore him. And he was about to ask for, I'm not judging, because sometimes I'm not in the mood. But, and he was like, can I have, and she was just like, it's like, no, I don't have anything. Get away. She was, like, really rude to the dude, right? And back of her windshield, she had, like, Jesus loves bumper stickers and all types of shit, right?
Right.
So she turned around and she saw me, and she was like, no, I was going, and she started trying to explain herself. And I just took money out and gave it to the guy. I was like, "I don't worry about it." Like, and I wasn't even mad at her because it's just like sometimes it's just you're not in the mood, or you don't have it, or you just don't feel like dealing with it, whatever. And then she turned to me and she was like, "You look nice. Are you coming from church?" And I was like, "No, my brother just passed. I was coming from his funeral." And she was like, "Well, was he saved?"
Okay.
And she had this look in her eye, and she's like, "Well, was he saved?" And I knew if I said no, it would turn into a longer conversation than I needed to. And I was just like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Well, baby, don't worry about it. Like, I hope you ain't fretting. You fretting for no reason. Like, he's with Jesus now." Like, pulled that, finished pumping the gas, and hopped in her car, drove right past the homeless dude. And initially, for a split second, it was weird because I wasn't even angry. It was one of those artist life moments. Like, for some reason, I felt everything is going to be okay. Like, this is all of life's experience happened for some reason in that moment somehow, where I just had an epiphany of like, I think some people would be like, "That's not supposed to happen. She's not supposed to say this, and that." And it's like, no, like, that's something about that. That's life. Like, it just is what it is. Like, me getting angry in that moment, it just made me laugh. It made me feel better somehow. I don't know what. And what made me feel better wasn't the whole Jesus thing. Like, I don't want that to confuse people. Like, I don't want people to be like, "Oh, he must have got the message that my brother is with Jesus."
Right.
No. Like, no, he's not. But something about that entire experience was just like, life continually moves. And a lot of times when we're trying to find the stability or these perfect clients, or just these perfect experiences, we're trying to hold on to it and keep it in place. And it's like, no, all of this keeps moving. So you can either move and grow and change and experience new things with it, or you can try to hold yourself in place as hard as you can. And it's going to drag you anyway. Now you got scrapes and scuffs and your head's got knocked off the curb and all that, but you're going to get pulled with it anyway. So you can either choose to make these experiences great, or you can't. Like, it is what it is. You can learn from that lady who was like, "Oh, your brother's with Jesus," after telling the homeless dude to fuck off. You can learn from that, or you can find the beauty and hilarity in it and just be like, "You know what? I think this somehow I still haven't figured out what made me love that moment so much," because it was literally I was leaving the funeral. But I need to figure out what in that experience, why I found it so intriguing or beautiful, or why I want to do something short about it. Because there's something on a principle level that happened there that I'm just like, something about life just happened. Like, Life happened in that moment. And those are moments you can't have if you're trying to curate your life. Those are just moments that happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, unless you take that walk, you're not going to bump into that person that's going to say something funny to you that's going to inspire you to do something else. You're just not going to.
Man, okay. I want to throw a formal question at you before we officially wrap up.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna formulate a question here for you. I want you to throw your advice cap on real quick, okay? So we've talked about this whole journey of being open to new challenges and growth and inviting in those wacky moments and seeing what that could actually turn your next steps or next phase of life into, or whatever it is. Like, right now, if somebody's listening to this and they're looking at that maybe curb edge. Mm-hmm. But it's looking an awful lot like a cliff, and they're unsure about those next challenges, or they've got that next chapter that is completely unknown, and they don't know if they want to take those steps, if they want to take that adventure that they're debating on, or they're stuck in the machine, whatever it is. Like, if they're looking at taking that leap, but they're super unsure, what would you tell them?
Calm yourself, take a deep breath, and step. Like, a lot of times you have to distill all the other voices, and even a lot of times your own voice that's constantly telling you that this isn't gonna, and you have to have confidence in your life experiences. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for all the things we've been through that have grown us. We're stronger than we think we are. But a lot of times you just have to shut your mind off and do. like, which is very difficult. But if you can figure out a way to, and I've learned to do it because I think naturally I'm a little bit introverted. But I remember having conversations with my mom as a little kid where she was like, "You're not gonna." It was weird. My parents were weird. You're not gonna develop if you don't learn how to talk to people and how to interact with people. Because my brother was super talkative, so I'd literally go, like, my mom would see me, we'd be together, and she'd have a conversation would be going on, and I, as a little kid, I'd be like, just talk to Dexter, and he'll speak for me. I don't want to talk to you. And I would just start being quiet, and I'd start imagining shit. And she saw that, and she told me I had to. So what I started to learn was all the anxiety and nervousness I get from taking a new step or talking to new people or going to this event where what am I gonna say? I'm like, a lot of times when I'm in a new city, I'll go to a rental house or some type of film production company and just be like, hey, I'm in town. I just heard about you guys, blah, blah, blah. And that's an anxiety. That's one of those steps off the curve that gives you anxiety because it's like, there's really no reason I should be here. And there's something false about me just randomly showing up. And even though I've gotten some of the best connections I've ever had from doing that, every time I do it, it's a thing. And I have to shut my mind off and go, just step, just jump, just do it. Because there's a million reasons you're going to start thinking of why you shouldn't be doing this. And you have to start thinking, what do you have to gain and what do you have to lose? If you go into this place to try to meet someone or to do something, you can either gain a world of experiences, or you can look dumb for half a second and then go home. No one's going to remember. People have shit to do. People have lives. People are going through shit. Like, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. So if you want to send that DM or this, whatever it is, like, of course you calculate if this is, because I'm not saying go, like, you see the crack pipe and you just like, hey, man, crack has always been, I want to feel that experience of flight, man. And I'm not saying that. Like, but it's like when it comes to stuff like calculated and that you're being empathetic to about what's going on in the world around you and the people around you and what they're going to, I think that's huge empathy. That's a whole other conversation. But, like, just take that step. Because you have so much more to gain from that experience. Even if it's a bad one where you end up looking stupid, that's a funny story you can go tell somebody. It's all wins. So I know it sounds, I wish I had something more like ethereal, amazing to tell you, but I found that if I deaden those voices in my head and I just make a move, even if it's just high and then your brain freezes up again, because it will, and your brain would immediately go, what the fuck did I just tell you? Take your dumb ass home. Like, power through that. I was just coming to, or I just wanted to talk to you, or I liked your work. How'd you do? And ask or do things genuinely so that when it's time to talk about something or to experience something, if you're doing it from a genuine place, your spirit will kind of make up the rest for you. Like, if it's genuine. So going into it, you might not have an answer of how you're going to navigate yourself through it. But once you're there, and if you're doing it for organic reasons, those organic reasons will start taking over, and you'll start asking questions that are actually going to help you or mean for you. You're going to start doing things or meeting people or talking to people because innately you already have it in you. So,
dude, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Okay, so I'm gonna cue us to go home here. I'm gonna wrap us up. I know you got a shoot to get to.
Yeah, I got a shoot to get to.
I appreciate you because I know if we don't wrap it up, this will be just not in a Tim Hortons, but another 6 hour, 4 hour conversation. So, okay, so I wrap up every episode with the same question, and I cannot wait to hear your answer. So, right now, I want you to pretend like everyone in the world, everywhere, is on the other end of that microphone, and they can hear you. So you have a live mic attached to every single person. You get to share a message, a thought, advice, opinion, whatever with them. You're connected to everybody right now, and they can hear you. What is it that you're saying to them?
Ooh. Damn, that's a question. Ooh, that's a hard one.
It puts you on the spot.
What am I saying to them? I know I don't want to give advice. I know I don't want to say something pretentious like I love you or some horse shit. What would I say? Tell me your story. I think I'd ask a question. Tell me your story. If it could be translated in somehow, I'd want to know that something about your experience unique to you. And it doesn't have to be pain. And I'd want to know if I could somehow distill a question that would ask about kind of like that gas station experience I had. What was one of those moments you just had that just human? Tell me about that. I want to know something about that, the texture in your life. Like, tell me about that. That's what I would ask a question. I'd want to know. What's your story?
Yeah. Dude, I love that. I've never had an answer like that. Like that to that. That's great, dude. Well, man, thank you for sharing your story with me today. I am so freaking stoked we got to do this. Like, and again, clearly we've said it 100 times. We love talking to each other. Yeah. We've sat in a coffee shop and had the hours upon hours of conversation. We just added this to the list. This is another multi-hour conversation that we got to have. Dude, that was a freaking blast.
Dude,
seriously,
I had a lot
thank
of
you
fun,
for doing
man.
this, man.
No, thanks for having me. Like, it's always, we need to chop it up and hang more often, dude.
Like, literally what I was about to say. Not only do I want us to work together, but whether it's for a podcast or not, I would love for us to reoccurringly sit down, because clearly I think it's pretty obvious now we're never going to run out of things to talk about.
No.
Like, at this point, we have had so many rad conversations, and I look forward to every single freaking one of them. So yeah, I want us to, like, now that the world has opened back up a little bit more and things are, whatever. I would love for us to get coffee, food, whatever it is, at least reoccurringly, so we can freaking keep
Try
up.
some new restaurants. Go to Budapest.
There it is.
Hey, dog.
Hey, if you ever want to join me on one of my ventures,
hey, dog,
I need some referrals, and I don't want to go do them alone. Yeah. So if you're down,
I'm hella down.
Hell yeah. We're going to make that happen. Or a hike. If you ever want to go on a hike with me, if you want to do any of those things on my hobby list, I'll share those with you and be like, yo, bro. Drew, when do you want to hang? Because I'm sure it would make the hike actually feel, if it's like super hot or we're in rugged terrain, it probably won't feel that bad because we're going to be too busy talking about everything else. So we won't even notice how difficult the path is.
Definitely, man.
Well, dude, so before we say goodbye, plugs and promotions. I know we had this whole social media talk and all this sort of stuff, what we like to do, what we don't like to do. But if you do want anyone to connect with you on social, if they want to find you, if they just want to come seek you out, find your work or check up with you, see if you start posting any of those hobbies that you do or whatever it is, where can they find you around the internet?
You can find me ProvidiLife at ProvidiLife.com, or that's my Instagram handle. I actually started a new branding called Just Drew DP. So my last name is insanely long, and so part of me was just keeping it Just Drew. So don't worry about the name, just call me Drew. And then the other part is like, I just want part of a brand to just be just Drew. I'm a DP. This is what I do. Casual. Here's some images. Here's some life shit, and not in a preachy way. This is just Drew. So I'm working. I already got the website and all that, but I'm working on developing that space as well. So it's not super of what I was, but yeah, ProvidiLife.com.
Hell yeah,
ProvidiLife.
How do you say your last name?
Oh, Ndengabaganizi.
Ndengabaganizi.
Bam.
That's it. Okay,
yeah, that's
dude,
it.
I have never known. I have never known. And it's so funny because every single person who you ever get brought up with, they're like, "Do you know Drew?" And I'm like, "Drew," and like we both are like with the last name, and they're like, "Oh, so we know the Drew." I feel like I get that in a much different way though. No one knows how to say Tyson. Everyone's Theisen, blah blah blah. One more time, say it.
Ndengabaganizi.
I am going to freaking remember that. So then when I talking about you or Bray, I'm like, yeah, I know him. We're freaking friends. I know his last name.
Yeah, on paper it looks bad.
It's
which
difficult.
Is why I say tell people just Drew.
Just Drew.
but Ndengabaganizi, yeah.
Dude, thank you so freaking much for doing this, man.
Thanks for having me, man. This was super
blast.
fun. I needed this.
Yes, good. So did I. So freaking did I. Thank you so much, dude.
Great, man.
We're done.
Nice.
That's it, dude.
Beautiful.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. Like, dude, this was great.
Okay, episode 43 in the books. I hope you guys liked listening to it as much as I did having the conversation. I honestly knew going into this, based off of Drew and I's very first sit-down meeting back at a Tim Hortons a couple years ago, where we sat for like 5 hours and talked about everything. I knew based off that he'd make for a great conversation here, but I don't even know if I think I knew how good of a conversation it would end up being here for the show. It was an absolute blast. So again, I hope you guys feel the same. You heard Drew talk about not really using his social media all that much in this, but make sure to go follow him, check out his work, check out all the cool creative things that he is a part of. And honestly, at this point in time, there's probably going to be some work out there that's shared that he and I actually did together, so go make sure you check all of that out. Drew is just an awesome dude. He's an awesome creative, just an awesome person that I'm happy to get to call a friend, to be completely honest. So again, big thanks to him for sitting down with me one more time to talk for a couple more hours and making another super fun episode of this show. And of course, I will be aiming to do that again on the next episode, where I sit down once again with a brand new guest that you may or may not know of, as they share their story that you for sure never heard.